knows it's here to stay. But Casey won't give up, no, no, cause you know he's way too tough. He's gonna do whatever it takes. He's gonna find a way. Casey never liked school much. All the kids would laugh when he read in class. Teachers tried to help him out, but they didn't know what to do, so they just let it pass. Sometimes he wanted to scream out loud, hide his head in the sound of the clouds. D-Y-S-L-E-X-I-A, he could anything to make it go away, even though he knows it's here to stay. But Casey won't give up, no, no, cause you know he's way too tough. He's gonna do whatever it takes. He's gonna find a way.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's a beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon or evening, Sunday evening here in the city, capital city of Nigeria, Abuja. I hope you all had a refreshing weekend and I hope your day is going on well. I'm always so excited to have everyone here and I'm glad that we have our student in the house. Someone rightly said that we're always in class. So I'm glad our students are already here with us. I can see you, Pastor Manu, Lola Aneke, Blessing Gape, and for everyone who will be spending the evening with us today, we want to say a big thank you in advance. We're hoping that more people will join in as always. I hope we're here to unlearn, relearn, and to learn again all that has to do with special needs. So it's episode 42 on finding out with special needs. And the topic for today is feeding and physiotherapy for children with special needs. You know, when we talk about special needs, we need to we have to be clear on the particular category of special needs we're talking about. And today we'll be focusing more on children with cerebral palsy. You know, each time we talk about special needs, on finding out with special needs, we try to ensure that every of our audience goes home or goes away with something to help them better support individuals with special needs. So today will not be anything different from that. Today, we'll be talking about feeding and physiotherapy for children with special needs, particularly children with cerebral palsy. We have Mr. Alex with us today. Yay! He came in right on time today. So it's been signing for our audience who needs a sign language interpreter. Thank you so much, Mr. Alex, for always showing up. Thank you. And like I was saying earlier on, it's episode 42 on finding out with special needs. And today we'll be talking about feeding and physiotherapy for children with special needs. We all know that when it comes to support for children with special needs, it involves a multidisciplinary approach. And if you've been following and you've been a good student, you realize that week in, week out, for the past 42 weeks, we've always brought in experts who do good job. They do fantastic and excellent job in helping us to understand how to provide help for whatever category we're talking about on that particular day. And today we have two beautiful ladies that will be joining us to shed more light on the topic feeding and physiotherapy for children with special needs. You know, each time I put out the topic for the week, I always try to give a little introduction to what we're talking about. So I'll read that out quickly, and then so that whoever did not see the flyer, if for any reason you missed the flyer, you'll be able to understand what we're discussing about today. So when I shared the flyer on Friday, I wrote and I'm going to read what I wrote out to us on social media. I said adequate nutrition during infancy and early childhood is essential to ensure the growth, health, and development of children to their full potential, according to World Health Organization in 2009. Poor nutrition increases the risk of illness and is responsible directly or indirectly for many deaths in children less than 5 years of age. Imagine that, you know. And some children with disability experience great difficulties with feeding, and that's what we're talking about today. In this episode, we will focus on our discussion on the critical role of food nutritionists and physiotherapists in providing feeding support to kids with special needs and feeding challenges. I'll be focusing more on children with cerebral palsy. Of course, a lot of children with disability also experience issues with feeding and um, nutrition, imbalanced nutrition. So today we have two ladies. I'm super, super excited about them. I always say something about guests. Whenever I read their bio, I'm like, wow, wow, we have such great people in this country. And I really want to applaud them for choosing to be with us this evening. I'll invite them in real quick and they will introduce themselves to us because there's no way I'll do justice to introducing them to you. When they speak to us, we hear them speak about who they are and the great work they're doing. And really, believe me, these two ladies are doing great work in the field of disability management. So without much ado, I'll be inviting our two guests for today. Hello, Miss Kofo. Wow, she's still on the road.
Hi.
Can you believe that? Hello, Ijoma.
Hello, Lola.
Hi.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Kofo. Thank you, Ijoma, for choosing to spend your evening with us. Every now and then I talk about how everyone just want to rest on Sunday evenings to get ready for the busy working days, which is Monday. But we do not take this for granted at all that you chose to be with us to enlighten us more about how we can support individuals with special needs. And particularly regarding today's topic, we are really excited to have you. Lately I've been talking about the needs of children. Before you can help any child, you want to be sure that the physiological need is met, the feeding need is met, shelter, security, and all of that, according to Maslow's hierarchy of need. And today is no exception. We are talking about food, feeding, and how it affects children's growth, particularly children with special needs, particularly and more importantly, children with cerebral palsy. So I'll let Ms. Kofo please go first. Tell us about yourself, your organization, and what you're doing in the space of disability. Then Ms. Ijoma will go after you.
Thank you so much, Miss Lola. I am really grateful for inviting me onto your session. Yes, as you can see, I'm still in the car, moving from one place to the other. Thank you so much. My name is Kofo Davis Otto. I'm a pediatric neuro rehabilitation physiotherapist. Actually, you are talking about cerebral palsy, which is one of my major, is my little baby, because I have a special interest in children with CP. I studied here in Nigeria and I moved to Dublin. I spent 10 years in Dublin, then moved to UK, spent 7 years in the UK, and then home came calling. So I came back to Nigeria and I started gradually. So now we have our own center. It's a neuro rehabilitation physiotherapy center, neuromuscular rehabilitation center. It's based in Maitama. We have passion about children, adults with neurological conditions. CP, like I said, is my little baby, and I really tell me
Hello?
something. My phone just died.
Oh, it's okay. We see these things a lot. We can't control it. She'll be back. I'm sure she'll be right back with us. While we wait for her to round up our introduction, we'll have Miss Ijoma step in. I call her Prof. Prof. Ijoma, please talk to us.
Please, Lola, I'm no prof, please. I am Ijomugu. I am a human nutritionist, but I started out as a food scientist. So I've taken a special interest in. I am the founder of Brain Foods for Gods. We specialize in recommending and following up with nutritional intervention for children living with neurological impairments, food allergies, and other gastrointestinal disorders, and to a large extent, people living with chronic diseases. So we say that we cater for people with special nutritional needs.
Hmm.
So we we found out that a lot is going on in terms of nutrition with neurological impairments. Initially, parents believe that food has nothing to do with it, but I'm here to make you understand that food has everything to do with it. So, and I thank Lola for bringing this up because it's going to go a long way in making the best for the children to even get the best out of other therapies. When the nutrition is right, it fosters better results from other therapies and interventions. So,
True.
thank you so much, Lola.
Thank you. Thank you for choosing to be with us this evening. And we truly appreciate you. You know, each time I hear a nutritionist speaking, I'm like, wow, wow, I'd always been blessed with a good body. So I just started getting very conscious about what I take in the last 2, 3 years. And I saw the
Yeah,
difference, when you eat healthy, when you know the right combination, the right calorie, it does so much good. And then beyond
yeah,
that, also, when you think about children with special needs, particularly children with cerebral palsy, I know every child needs to eat right, but we want I've done research on, and I've seen firsthand children with cerebral palsy. I've had parents say to me, when I started putting the nutrition right and doing the right thing according to what the nutritionist said to me, I started seeing improvement in my child's muscle tone. I started seeing improvement in my child's concentration. And that goes for
yeah.
most children. But because today we're talking about the feeding and challenges and what nutrition is, and that's why we're focusing more on children with cerebral palsy. But let's just talk generally about food. What are the kind of food that ordinarily will benefit everyone, little children, because that's, when we talk about brain growth, it has to do with what you take, what the children consume. So could you just
Yeah.
enlighten any parent out there, be it a child with or without disability, the kind of nutrient that every child should take in every day? I know that they say an egg away keeps the doctor away, an apple a day. But could you just tell us, just like run us through a free session on what the combination of our feeding should be, or our nutrients should be on a daily basis? And a lot of people always complain, oh, in Nigeria, we have more of starch, there's no variety. But I know that's not true. There are ways we can put food together. So we'd like a free session from you on what the benefit of feeding is, and how the minimum combination of what the kind of nutrients should be on a daily basis for any child, and even for every individual in our homes.
So I must say that we all learned in school that protein is the building blocks of life. So, but before I delve into that, it's pertinent that everyone should have it at the back of their mind that we are what we eat. So a lot of times we tend to forget the fact that as humans, we should look at ourselves as a building, as a house. And then if you build your house with fake materials, you're going to be having leakages, busted pipes, cracked floors, cracked walls, and all of that. That is exactly how our bodies are. So if you continue feeding yourself junk, you will continue to have it coming back to you. I
Mhm.
will ask parents that it is better that you boast about how much you spend on food than how sophisticated the hospital your family is using. Because it is only when there is impairment, illness, that you now have to think about hospital. So it is easier to stop this than to get to that point, because it comes with both financial cost, physical cost, emotional cost,
Right.
inconvenience.
Psychological,
So
yes. True.
yeah, so I would ask parents that at the back of your mind, just say, look, I am what I eat. With this consciousness, now you begin to ask yourself, okay, so what is it that I should eat to make me the best of me? So that is on a general note. But when it comes to children, it is a very delicate one. Why? Because the foundation is very important. On a scale, on a graph, we usually represent it on a graph whereby if a child started eating right as a child, and if someone started eating right as an adult, you see that the life expectancy can never even be the same. The person that started eating right as a child, the life expectancy and the health condition is usually even higher than when you started eating late in life. So when you eat right as a child, you must have built a solid foundation that even when you are older, you realize that even when everyone in your class is catching flu, even when everyone is catching one thing or the other, you are more or less just like watching. And it saves you a lot of stress. So coming to what you should eat, we have all grown to realize the importance of fruits and vegetables, because basically these things, as colorful as they are, each color represents a type of nutrient. They are called phytonutrients. Normally they are deposited in the plant to serve various purposes. Some of them are antimicrobial, so for inside the plant it will be chasing away insects from the plant. Some of them are anti-inflammatory, so inside the plant it will be preventing it from maybe getting an abnormal growth somewhere. So all of these are phytonutrients, and science has proven that they perform similar functions when consumed by humans. So aside gunning for balanced diet, we should also look at color, coloring our food, making our food look very colorful, because in that you are also gaining a lot of phytonutrients. So that aside, we are talking about fruits and vegetables. Then when it comes to the macronutrients, which is the like carbohydrate, protein, and fats, at different stages in life, you require different combinations. As children, we are not so particular about their fat consumption. Why? Because the brain is made up of a lot of fat. Many of the children need a lot of fats in order to sustain the brain growth. And then many of them will also need a lot of protein because they are at that growth stage where the cells are still multiplying. And we know that gene is made up of amino acids, which is coming from food, which is coming from protein. So the protein should be there. Then the carbohydrates provides the energy. The energy you need, even the brain itself derives its energy from the carbohydrates you eat, from glucose. It is only when a child is in a dire condition of maybe epilepsy or some what that you can consider, it is not in all conditions, you can consider maybe putting the child in ketogenic diet where the brain will be getting most of its energy from ketones. But all in all, nature made it such that all these things are available and accessible to us. So at the end of the day, we look at not just balancing your diet, but looking at, okay, your stage in life. When we do dietary requirements in nutrition, we look at a lot of things. We look at your even your financial status. We look at the type of work you do. You cannot give a bricklayer the same diet as you will give someone who sits in the office from morning till night. This other person needs a lot of energy. This other person needs less energy. And based on dietary recommendations, you cannot still going bricklayer and executive officer. You can't give both of them the same type of food to eat. This one can afford more of this, and this one can afford less
Right.
of this. And we also look at taboos. Okay, you say in my church we don't eat this, in my religion we don't eat this. So a lot of things go into dietary recommendation. That is why when parents say, just give us a meal plan, just give us meal plan, I say no. And these days, because of the environmental factors, a lot of people are having allergies. I could just jump and say, everybody go and eat your egg, and then a particular child is allergic to egg. So it becomes harmful to such a child until something is done to heal the guts. That child will not be able to tolerate the egg, and it will be causing him a lot of discomfort at each point of consumption. So when we do dietary recommendations, a lot of things go into consideration. Personally, if you are a child with special needs, I would always insist on getting your allergy test done. It is only when you bring that result, I should know the things that are good for this child and the things that are harming this child. And as time goes on, with other things we will be doing, which will be healing the gut, you realize that the child may end up tolerating the food that he was allergic to maybe a year ago or so. So, yeah, on a general note, people to eat varieties, 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 because each food contains different things. You know, spread out. Don't stick to one thing every day. Variety. Just continue, exploring. There are lots and lots of things to eat. Not only nutrients, we also talk about microbiome. Each food has its own makeup of microorganisms, which you will be deriving from it to increase your microbiome population. So the kind of microbiome you get from cabbage is not the type of microbiome you get from yam. It's not the type of microbiome you get from cassava. So when you spread your food, you are getting different types of, microbiome from the different types of food, and also the different nutrients that are therein. We know that, okay, rice, yeah, cassava, they are all basically carbohydrates. But in rice, we have different amounts of micronutrients than we have in cassava. So when we talk about that, we now talk about pairing food. Like if you eat rice and beans, you are more or less getting almost a complete protein, because what is lacking in beans is present in rice. So instead of you just taking a plate of rice and eating it with stew, why not just add like 2 spoons of beans? By doing that, you are almost making up, if there was no meat in it, you are almost getting all your essential amino acids if you combine these two foods together. So that's when we talk about varieties, 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 varieties. That's my advice, Lola.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You've done a great job. I mean, thinking about how wide this is, one would have said, oh, just eat this, eat that. But thank you for helping us understand that you just need to think of the variety. Talking about balanced diet and fruits and vegetables and carbohydrates and all of that. Really, you've done a great job with that. Thank you so, so much. Now, thank you for joining us back, Miss Kofo. We lost you for a bit, but we're glad that you're back. So you were talking about you need to unmute yourself. You need to unmute yourself. Can you hear me, Miss Kofo?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Okay.
Apologies again.
It's okay. These things happen.
You
We
totally.
understand. It's totally okay. We just go on as if nothing happened. And Ijoma actually filled in the space while you were away. She did a great job trying to explain some vital information to us when it has to do with nutrients. Before you go on, I would like to tell our audience to please begin to think of the questions you have for either Miss Ijoma or Miss Kofo based on the topic we have today. It's about feeding and nutrition and feeding of children with special needs. So basically, what is the role of a nutritionist and the role of a physiotherapist when it comes to feeding children with special needs, particularly children with cerebral palsy? Because we always say that when it comes to children with special needs, it involves a multidisciplinary approach where you bring different professionals because the need of every child differs. So with these children that we're talking about today, if you have such children in your classroom, this is a very important topic for you, because sometimes you find that some teachers are not even patient with some children, and and then you expect them to, during, so for example, maybe a child was slow during a particular um, time for learning, and then it's time for lunch, and then the child is slower than every other person, and you don't understand the challenges this child is going through. This is a time for you to pay attention and ask questions that will help you to bring out the best. You heard what Ijoma said. She said, we are what we eat. So when that child is not listening, when the child is doing other things, it might also be as a result of what the child has not been able to take in, or the level of coordination for that child, especially if it's a child with cerebral palsy. So please throw in your questions so that our professionals in here will do justice to the question, to help us be better teachers, parents, and service providers. Thank you so much to all our audience. Now, back to you, Ms. Kofo. Please, I'd like you to just round up, tell us about what you do. I remember you said something about cerebral palsy being your baby project. Could you just shed more light on
Yeah.
that? And then we'll ask you your question.
So thank you so much, Miss Lola. I really appreciate it. And Miss Ijoma, thank you so much. That was really informative and very educative. When I said that it's my pet project, it's basically, when I said CP is my pet project, is basically like when I hear people talking about it, I just want to contribute as much as possible, because I've worked with quite a lot of other professionals, and I've been able to get tap from their wealth of knowledge in physiotherapy. I'm going to just break down. You've nailed it in terms of what most people are looking at is hurry. And with CP, you can't be in a hurry. We're all so fast because of the kind of working life, the kind of lifestyle, school, too many children, everyone wanting to get everything done quick. Those are some of the issues that we have. One thing we have to understand today, if we don't, already know, is that when we look at the external organs, we also have the internal organs. And most of the internal organs too, as much as the external organs are made up of muscles, the internal ones too are also muscles. Example
Yeah.
is the muscle, the tongue. The tongue is a muscle on its own. So if a muscle is weak, the rate at which a child A will be able to eat fast will be very different from a child B, the rate at which they are going to eat fast. Remember, eating, mastication, chewing it, it's a lot of hard work. The best way I can explain it is when you buy a very hard corn. That after chewing it for a while, you kind of relax because your jaw, everything is paining you.
So,
So that's the way you bring it back to our children that have got CP. It involves the muscle, mastication, then positioning. I don't think any one of us can eat lying down. Positioning is a major key. When we want to eat, we don't lie backwards. I've seen some parents, I've seen some teachers, especially those little tiny babies. You think you are supporting them, they will turn their head a little bit backwards, like in about 30 degrees angle, like a lying position, and then they'll start feeding. They've forgotten when you are chewing, you need those muscles to be left over from the side. You need the muscles to push it backwards. But if your throat is already has been pushed backwards, difficulty comes. Then you give the child water. There is a risk of aspiration. That's why sometimes you hear most parents saying, "Oh, my child has got chest infection. My child has got chest infection." It's because of the child aspirating. Because there are muscles that are supposed to control the movement of food and water.
I think we lost Miss Kofo for a bit, and I'm sure she'll be back. Like we always do on Finding Up with Special Needs. Thankfully, we have another professional in house, and this is something they're very good at. She'll be right back and continue to talk to us about some of the wrong ways that we feed these children, because naturally, because a lot of challenges that they go through have to do with the muscle. So we need to be careful so that we don't cause more of a disservice to them as opposed to a service. So over to you, Ijoma. Could you please tell us some of the challenges that children with cerebral palsy experience when it comes to actual chewing and feeding, just like Miss Kofo was talking about? Oh, she's
Hello?
back.
I
She's
think
back.
she's
Yes.
yeah.
So Ms. Kofo, you may proceed. Yes. You were talking about aspiration. So you said
Yeah, I
you talk
was,
about that.
yeah.
Yeah, and then how you lay the child on the back and chest infection. So please go on now.
Okay, so with all of that, we have to, when we want to feed these children, first of all, we have to know the level of their involvement. We have the gross motor level 1, the gross motor level 2, the gross motor level 3, level 4, and level 5. Level 5 are the ones that are very, very involved. They have all the four limbs involvement, they have the neck involved, and the legs, they are involved. So it is much harder for those children. They are the ones that the foods are pureed. So they have to be
Mm,
in a well supported seat, well positioned. The food, like what Mrs. Joma said, you have to know your child, know the allergies that this child might have, know the food that will work with the child. She said you have to do the initial allergy test, which is very important. Then you can now position the child and then feed. Then the gross motor level 1, those ones are not so much noticeable. They can go without anyone knowing that they have CP. Those ones, they need a little bit of extra help in terms of time. You're not rushing them. You allow them to sit well. They might need to, have modified cups. Once they are eating, they get some water to wash down the food and to rinse the tongue, giving them extra time, even in school. Let's say people get 15 minutes for lunch. Theirs might be increased to 20-25 minutes. They might be given an head start so that they leave the class for lunch earlier than other children, so they eat. Some of them will call them, in the process of wanting to rush them, they become messy eaters, which is very embarrassing for them. They don't want to be
mm,
messy eater. Unfortunately, it's because they want to quickly do it like everyone. And sometimes
mm,
some kids, because they know that you are watching them, they'll say, I'm okay, I don't need to eat,
mm.
I'm full,
Yeah.
because
And
they
then
want
weight
to
loss
rush.
setting.
And then they are not getting enough.
That as a physiotherapist we want to look at. We want to look at how the child has been positioned for feeding. We want to look at the level of involvement. You want to look at what are these allergies that this child does, has got. You want to look at, okay, this child in terms of eating, do I make small portion several times, or do I increase their timing? Those are important. And then you want to educate the teacher that, please, because some of the teachers, they've never treated or seen a child that has got CP, especially those ones that are not showing so much. People label them as
Yeah.
being lazy, or people
Mm-hmm.
label them as being picky. It's not like they are lazy, it's not that they are picky. They are just trying to modify themselves to fit the environment. So all of those things, they are important. Then trying to wait, let them wait, because you are rushing. Wait, take a deep breath and then continue. You don't have to rush, just take it in tiny chunks now. Then the parents have to help the kids, those ones that are going to school, that the foods, they are much easier. Mrs. Joma said there are varieties of food. Making small portion for them, making it much easier. Imagine giving a child
Mm.
that's got CP apple. Apple is a bit crunchy and hard.
Mm.
Choking, the risk of choking, the risk of different other things that can come in it. And then you have a child that wants to talk with other colleagues, and then the mouth is full as well. So there are so many tiny, tiny things that we want to look at: posture, positioning, type of food, the type of involvement of the child, Mrs. Joma said the allergy of the child, and then making them comfortable, educating the teachers. this is what this my child is. These are the things like, these are the ways the child has to sit. My nanny, you want to make sure you educate the nanny or the grandma that, please, mommy, you have to force feed this child. This child has to be
Hmm.
well positioned. It's not like they don't like
Hmm.
the food. You are force feeding. Yeah,
Wow. You know, the beautiful she's back again.
Yeah.
Each time the internet yanks her out, she's back with full force, giving us, I would say hot, hot in Nigeria. Miss Kofo, are you
Yeah.
back? You're doing well. Please go on, ma'am.
so I don't want to take too much of time.
No, we are
But
enjoying
Yes,
it.
ma. So
no, no,
I
no.
just,
We're
I'm
enjoying
just,
what you say, really, because I was just saying that each time you go back, it's like you go back to reinforce and then you give it to us so hot. Thank you so much. You're doing a great job. And really, this is eye-opening because I see, because of the nature of work I do, I consult and I into inclusive and special education, and I go to observe, sometimes, oh, it's too slow, oh, that child is, his pencil grip and all of that, he doesn't even eat well, he's always eating, is a messy eater. And I'm like, that's why everyone needs to understand the various kind of disabilities we have and how to make our classrooms or our schools really, really inclusive, because that's why that child is first an individual before the disability. Therefore, you must teach him as, you must treat him as who he is and not who you expect him to be. And that's the power of neurodiversity. You've done a great job, because some people are thinking, I'm not a physiotherapist, I don't need to know. I'm not a parent, I don't need to know. I'm not a teacher, I don't need to know. But all that you said today has driven the point home for us, because sometimes even the sitting position alone
Yeah.
could be an issue for the child. And then you're wondering, why is this child not even swallowing? And like you said, sometimes the texture of the food, it might have to be pasty. That might be the reason why the child is not eating. And then you mentioned the issue of when they're rushing the child, and because the child doesn't want you to be frustrated with the level of the way it's slow, just to say, it tells you it's full, and then weight loss sets in, malnutrition, so to say, sets in, and then you can't get the best out of that child. Thank you so much. We are coming back to you with more questions
no.
when in
All right.
relation to physiotherapy and feeding. Now back to you, Ijoma. There are some questions I have particularly for you when it comes to feeding. You talk about texture of food, and we know that there are
Yeah.
different levels and how cerebral palsy. And that's one thing I always say to parents, because of you are in a group, for example, and the parents say, oh,
Mm.
make the food pasty. You go ahead
Yeah.
and do the same thing. That is a wrong for me. And I know professionally that is wrong. So I want you to shed more light on the different kinds. Some food need to be pasty, some need to be watery, and all of that. But could you just shed more light, give me examples? I don't have a case study for you, but just give an example based on the experience of how the feeding of these children should be when it comes to the texture of the food. And while you are at that, also let us know why children have reflux when they eat and what could be
Yeah.
done to avoid that. Ijama?
So basically, yeah, cerebral palsy, like the Mrs. Kofo has pointed out severally, it has a lot to do with muscle. And then the part of that muscle that converts food to energy is the mitochondria. So many children with neurodevelopmental impairments are known to have this mitochondrial dysfunction. And it doesn't just stop at motor skills. It goes as far as the mouth muscles and even the stomach muscles. Some of them, even if the food succeeds in passing through the mouth, it doesn't get well churned in the stomach. So by not breaking it down further in the stomach, you lose that surface area to volume ratio that is necessary for absorption. So the child now, even when they want to poo, you find out many of them are having
Constipation.
constipation. And
Mm,
that's because the muscle is still not in good condition.
mm,
So what do we do in this situation? In this situation, there are some of them might require puring their food to increase the absorption rate. And some of them might require extra supplementation to provide the lacking nutrients that they might not be getting from food. a lot of intervention. Some of them might even require some kind of food that increases, that may help the body to absorb energy more from food, converting the food you eat to ATP, which is the function of the mitochondria. So what happens in CP? Many parents think that, yeah, because it's CP, yeah, we don't have any business with nutrition. No, you have a lot of business with nutrition. Aside from the fact that they usually come with a lot of comorbidities, they are like specific challenges they have. And then, like Mrs. Kofo pointed out, so many people will not show it. They don't work in staggered manner. They don't have any form of limbs, like impairment on their limbs, but internally they lack that function. The mitochondria, there is what we call mitochondrial dysfunction and then mitochondrial disease. Those who do not have the real disease might not exhibit it, physically, but it affects a lot of things to the extent of speech. Some children who cannot speak is because they have that dysfunction, the mitochondrial dysfunction needed to process the energy that the tiny muscles need to move, to coordinate. Right. So when they eat food, you find out the tummy could not break down the food. They pull pieces of food. So when I ask parents, have you seen pieces of food in your child's poo? Most times it goes together. A child who cannot hold a pen or pencil, you see the child screaming, crying, refusing to hold a pencil. And then they are like, okay, he doesn't just like writing. No, it hurts. When he holds the pen, it hurts. It's painful. So it goes together. When a child cannot hold a pen, usually if you ask, the child usually don't like chewing his food. Usually if you ask, the child, you find pieces of food in his poo. Sometimes it goes again with a certain level of constipation. So these are the tiny, tiny muscles that get affected when the mitochondria is not functioning well. And when it comes to cerebral palsy is like a muscular thing.
Yes.
So, so just like I said, nutrition is a bio-individual thing. It is when you look at a child, you make a proper assessment. What are the things that this child needs? What are the symptoms this child is showing? And then we always want to back up with medical tests. So from the medical tests, something like organic acid test, something like food allergy, something like urine test, you see a lot of things. You see, yeah, it's like, I tell parents, it's like a roadmap. Even if you don't want to engage a professional in the main intervention, please try and take a test. If you are very science inclined, with a test, you can do something on your own. Yes. I'm not saying just do a test and sit at home and do whatever you like with your child, but I think I am saying here that it gives you a good, view of what you are tackling. But the problem we have is that parents will just be like, they told me, one woman said that after doing this one, the child did this. And everybody will just like a drove of bees and start going to do that one. On most occasions, we tend to harm our children more than we are helping them. So whoever is listening, if you're a parent, please, there are procedures for everything, and everyone, nutrition is individualized. Interventions are individualized. What might work for A might not work for B. And the physiology and everything makeup of A can never be the same as B. So that is why people spend years and years studying a particular profession. The problem is that we have little respect for professionalism. And that is why at some point it's as if we are just stagnant, because we are not hitting the nail on the head. True. So when it comes like, again, I go back to dietary requirements. We look at you, we look at your needs, we look at your physiology, everything. We now bring it together before we can make a recommendation. But all in all, children with cerebral palsy, you have to look at foods that help with basically the mitochondrial function, so that even the little he or she is taking will be able to be converted to energy. And incidentally, Mrs. Kofo, my my master's thesis is on feeding challenges for children with developmental impairments and how it affects their nutritional status and their um, their nutritional status, basically, which you have to measure with the anthropometric status. So we found out that to a very large extent, children who cannot feed themselves usually lack a lot of nutrients.
Hmm.
Yes, because it's what she said about being patient.
True.
Sometimes they just keep the food, Ola, eat. I cannot be
Hmm.
feeding you. You
Yes.
know,
Old enough.
especially in
Yeah.
school.
Yes.
Yes,
You're too
you are
slow. We
old
need to move
enough
to
to
the
care
next
for
thing.
yourself. And then the child is not having enough. The child is not taking enough. And the little he's taking is not being properly utilized. So in most cases, dietary recommendations is not just about balancing your nutrition. It's what I tell, especially children with neurodevelopmental impairment. Their diet, their intervention is not about balanced diet. It has nothing to do with balanced diet because they are on a different level entirely. They are somewhere out of the news. Their physiology is like wacko. It is all over the place. What a very neurotypical person can eat and absorb and be happy with, neurodevelopmentally delayed children can eat it and they will go from 100 to 0 in terms of behavior, in terms
Right.
of every other thing, development.
Mobility. Yes.
So you can't apply a theory of the herbs on them. You have to take them one after the other. One person is one person. It can never be applied on another person. I have had cases where children are allergic to the most bizarre things you can ever think of. A child who is allergic to thyme, who is allergic to onions, who is allergic to vegetable oil, who is allergic, the same child. So how are you going to prepare food for such a child?
Hmm.
And I have had cases of mothers who will just hear, remove this, remove that, remove that.
And you take it all
And
out.
in a month, you see the child emaciating, you see the child
True.
losing weight, you see the child losing cognitive abilities, and you think you are doing him a lot of good. So when it comes to children with cerebral palsy, a lot of caution have to be applied. A lot of caution have to be applied, and let us just know it today that nutrition is individualized
Hmm.
because we are all bio individuals. Our biology is different and individual.
True. True. Could you just shed a little bit of light, just um, a minute on the issue of reflux? The when a
Oh,
child
yeah, yeah,
eats.
I
Yes.
forgot that. So reflux is basically as a result of lack of acid, stomach acid. So when children, and we know that a large percentage, I'm not sure of the specific percentage, but a large percentage of children with neurodevelopmental impairment come with gastrointestinal issues, and many of them lack the basic stomach acid. So
Enzymes.
when a child is having food come back to the heart area, it's usually as a result of lack of stomach acid to break down the food properly
Hmm.
and allow it to go down. Sometimes it's also coming from allergic reactions. Some children whose intestines cannot really tolerate certain foods. It might not really get down properly as it is. And apart from getting it back into their stomach, it causes other issues because as long as food is not digested, as time goes
Hmm.
on, it undergoes putrefaction. And when it undergoes putrefaction, it's as if you are carrying feces in your stomach. So absorption is with all the endotoxins, and endotoxins is just another name for endotoxins, just pieces of poo. That's just
Wow.
another name for it. So how it can be relieved is some people, in fact most of them usually require some type of digestive enzyme, and those that work with me, I usually require that you make your child's toothpaste by yourself. Yeah, toothpaste may seem little, but we do the toothpaste. We use baking soda and coconut oil to make the toothpaste. So baking soda is known to stabilize the stomach acid.
I see.
So if a child uses this toothpaste every morning and every evening, it helps to, calm the major turmoil that may come with lack of stomach acid and its light. So reflux can be calmed. You could use digestive enzymes. You could use. I'm not saying they should have been drinking the.
No,
No,
no.
so
We have to be careful, please.
and yeah, adjusting the diet too, because some foods back to being able to the stomach wall being able to churn the food again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you adjust the food either by content or by texture, you might have smoother digestion. You might see a less transit time whereby the food just passes. And then one other thing we see a lot is that in terms of digestion and retaining food in the stomach, is that many of the children already lack microbiome. Their microbiome is not balanced. So, and these things also help to break down the food content. So, with an unbalanced microbiome too, you can start getting a pile up of food, which might also lead
Causing reflux.
contribute to the reflux. Yeah.
Hmm.
So a lot of approaches you can incorporate probiotic regimen, you could incorporate change in diet, you could incorporate digestive enzymes, and there are procedures that can get one relief in such situation.
Wow, thank you so much. That was really, really eye-opening. We just see a lot of children with cerebral palsy, and I think, oh, they are not just able to move. We forget, like
Yeah,
Ijoma said, we are what we take in. And for them, we need to pay close attention. Beyond, like she said, it's not about balanced diet. It's about knowing what works for them with their body. And it's not a one-size-fits-all strategy you use when it comes to feeding. It's individualized and nutrition for individuals with special needs. I don't know the best person to ask this question because while you were speaking, the question that came to mind was the issue of tube feeding of cerebral palsy. Now, why is that? I know that I think I'll bring that question to Ms. Kofo, but Ms. Ijoma, you could also chip in. I know that there are different issues when it comes to chewing and of food and swallowing. There's a lot. So all these things we just do, we eat and then we're talking and all of that. I remember now I was doing my training in the US and we're talking about table manners. And then we go, oh, you don't. For me, that was when I even realized that it's cultural. There's a cultural difference to that because in
yeah,
America, that's when you eat is when they discuss family matter. That's when the bond well. But back home in Nigeria, our policy or our the table manner is you don't talk while eating. And each time I see individuals with CP or any kind of discipline that has to do with feeding, I am in awe as to how we are able to multitask, talk, eat, drink, laugh. I just shared my own story that there are signs of eating, especially if the food is peppery. I dare not talk. Once I talk, that's the end of that food for me because I don't do well with pepper. So I'm wondering, some of these kids, their challenge is they're not even able to open their mouth so that the side of the spoon can get it is. Some of them, the way they chew, like Miss Kopo was saying, the devil at which they chew it, just like the way you're choosing fresh corn, it's different from the way you would choose hard corn. All of that. And then swallowing it, taking it down. And then the issue of hand to mouth coordination, because we do these things, we don't even consider it really, and then instead has to before the way the neurons that coordinates the mouth to the mouth, to the hand, and then how it goes in. I saw this. I know Miss Kofo is into that also. I saw this video about how science has gone so far, technology advancement has gone so far, where there's a device that helps to scoop, and then all the child does is just open the mouth. I wanted to shed a bit of light on the issue of hand to mouth coordination, the chewing, and what can be done to help these children to absorb, for me, to get that food into their system, so to play the role it's ought to play. And also the issue of the tube feeding. I'm just curious, is it tube feeding to enable them eat, or is it to enable them help with digestion? And then I'm particular about, because for my study I know it's going to be for a short period, how do parents manage this? You need to unmute yourself, Miss Kofo.
I'm to turn up my
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear now.
I can't turn up my mic. Hey. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's okay now. It's gone off.
Okay. All right. Better now. Oh
Yes.
my God.
I wonder what's happening, but just if we can't hear you, we'll let you know. But right now, we can't hear you. I think you just touch it and let it be for a while, and then it will come on. You're good now.
Is it okay now?
Yes, perfect.
Is it good now?
Perfect. We can hear you loud and clear, ma'am.
All right. So the issue of feeding in terms of the grace, in terms of the muscles, like I said, we have let's look at it that we have the external muscles, which are the ones we all see. And there are different types of cerebral palsy. We have those that have one-sided involvement, that is one side. We have those that have the whole side involvement, and we have those ones that have the lower limb involvement a little with the upper limb. So we're just going to look at those ones that have the whole side involvement, that is the upper limb, the head, the neck, and then we look at how they feed, because that's where the major problem is. And then the other ones that I think we'll need to look at are those ones you've spoken about. The machine is, there is a new, technology has gone so advanced now that have the CPU, they call very unsteady. They can't stay in one place. It's not like it's because of the part of the brain that has been affected.
Yes.
So the manifestation, we see it physically. So in terms of muscle, like you said, when we think about it, if we see something, they've given us a food, like what every one of us would do. If they've given us a plate of food, the first thing I'll do is to get a spoon, a fork, or a knife, depending on the kind of food I've been given. And then I'll use my hand. Just think about yourself, what you ate this morning or this afternoon. So I'll carry my hand, pick up my spoon. Let's say I'm eating rice, and rice, they have to stay together. So dip my spoon inside. First of all, I'll stir my rice, and if it's stew and all that, I'll stir it together. Dip my spoon inside my rice and scoop it. Just think about it as I'm scooping it and bringing it towards myself. Look at all of that movement. I must have a lot of good hand function. I must have a lot of good upper body function and upper limb function. Then I scoop it. Then once I'm scooping it, remember that we said that the lips, they are muscles. Then I have to open my mouth. Remember that the cheeks too, they are muscles. So I have to open my mouth, and then the tongue is waiting, and I spoon in my mouth, and then the upper limbs, the upper lips has to close against the spoon to scoop out. When you want to get out ice cream, You put it at the edge, and then if it doesn't scoop out very well, you use your finger to kind of push it out. That's the work of what the tongue does. So the tongue and the lips, they work hand in hand together. So the upper limb had to scoop out that food from the spoon. That is for us. It doesn't happen for everybody like that. For our children, that is a lot of hard work. And once the spoon gets into the mouth, then the teeth has to start working. Then the tongue has to bring saliva, make to soften the food. And then, some parts will go to your cheeks. The tongue will be getting ready. The food has been softened by the saliva. Then the tongue will throw it back. It's like what we throw it back to the back of the neck for it to go down. All of those functions, they are all still muscles that are doing that. Then after you've thrown it, you swallowed it, then the epiglottis will quickly close so that the food will not just go into the windpipe. That's the wrong side. So that you have all that, you have the tongue, then the tongue has to clear up the food. Unfortunately, most times, our children, they don't have the ability to be able to clear out the food. So you have them sometimes. I've seen some children that will be brought to my clinic, under at the back of their teeth, there are leftover food that no one is aware of. They've just finished. But if you have leftover food, the next thing you will do is your tongue will come out and
To
roll
scoop it
out
out
the
with your
food.
tongue.
To school, exactly. And then you swallow it back. Our children don't have that. What we just do is, after we finish feeding them, we give them water. They don't know how to do this mouth
Gargle,
rinsing,
gargle.
bagel, to get
Yeah.
the old food out. They don't know that. The water just flows back. It's the work of the tongue to do that, to cleanse all of that. And one of the major problems with our children with CP is tooth decay. People don't them for dental review to see how their teeth is,
True.
because they are more prone, because of the leftover, the sugars and all that. They are more prone to tooth function. Internal muscle function too has all of that. The coordination has to be there. The muscle power, the muscle tone for both the lips, for both the jaw. The jaw has to be able to move up and down, because mastication involves moving of the mouth up and down. But if for the
True.
and they've not had their speech and language therapy exercises, their jaw are stiff. They can't move it as much. They can't open it. The way me I'm shutting my mouth, it's not everyone that can open it or coordinate it like that. Then the hands, some hands are weak or some hands are shaky. Not because of anything, but it's because of what has happened with the brain. Then to bring the food into the mouth. But the white people, they've done better things. Like IE, they've gone a little bit better in terms of they now have machine that you will attach to your table. So the machine will scoop. All you need to do is to bring the mouth towards yourself, and then the machine will scoop the food. But that is going to the extreme anyway, because you have to look what is obtainable for me here.
True.
So the spoon, ordinary spoon, the spoon can be configured. I know one of the spoon they've done is done in a U-shaped way. So the child is not having to stretch their neck. The U-shaped way,
Scoop
the
and
spoon
so.
just comes directly. They carry the food and scoop it. The plate, it has to be a plate that of curvature. Some people put food in flat plate for the child, and you don't want the child to be messy. No, the child will be messy. There are plates that have curvature in the middle of the food. Something is at the end to back the child up to pick up the food. And then the curvature of the spoon, the handle of the spoon. There's a spoon that I do get, but that it can be modified. You can just add, this foam, this normal furniture foam. You can wrap it around a spoon to make it bigger and fatter, so that it will be easy for the child to handle. it will be bigger hold for the child. So the child will be able to hold that and handle it and scoop the food and bring it. Miss Lola, you are right. Outside the country, people eat a lot and talk, because the dinner time is meant to be when you bring out all your problems, when everybody comes together to talk about problems. In Nigeria, it's not like that. And in a way, you look at it, that is a good way that is like that. Because another problem that happens when you are eating and talking is you can choke. Even on
True.
saliva, you can choke on saliva. So sometimes I would say, our culture is, in a way, is very good. I remember one of the things that they used to say, that if you use your hand to pack dirt from the floor, that you will be your hand later on in life, your hand will be shaking. But in a way, the brain behind it is that if you get your hands to pack, you get dirt in your hand, and then you get infected, which might
Excellent.
have been a better excuse. I guess they didn't want people to use their hands. So it's still the same way. They just don't want people to choke. Maybe someone must have choked back in those days, and they are okay if that is a sign of no respect or manners. If you are there, you are
Table
supposed to,
manners.
food time is supposed to be quiet. Yeah,
Quiet time.
and then you don't talk. So the muscles are definitely needed for all those functions. The strengthening of the muscles, the truncal muscles, that's the muscles around the chest, the abdominal muscles, because it's always it's called central tone. It's one of the strongest muscles that you need to have in order to be able to sit upright. And when you are sitting upright, you'll be able to sit. But sometimes our children don't have that. So then you position them upright by supporting them with supportive furniture belts, so that they will be upright and they will be sitting. For their feeding, the muscles sometimes you can't control. There are some medications for children that have very tight muscles. There are a lot of medication that people are using, that the pediatrician can recommend. They have diazepam, they have baclofen that will relax the muscle, and then the child can be trained gradually. I think the main training starts from the house, because it is as much training they get at home that they'll be able to go back in school or in the society, and they won't be looked at as messy eater. And those foods that are going to make anyone messy anyway, one will move away from it. I.e., to eat amala is not an easy thing with draw soup. The whole thing
Soup.
goes all over. There are some foods to start with before you master the bigger ones. I think that's what I can kind of put down in terms of that. I don't know if that has been helpful.
Wow, it had been. It truly had been. We just, the thing is, when we talk about finding out with specialists and some of the um, information we gather here, we just try to issue a disclaimer so that it won't be said that Ms. Kopo said we must do it this way. We just to create awareness and give ideas, but you must find a professional that will guide you. I always say to parents and everyone that work with children with disability, have an idea so that when you're sharing with a professional, you can give input based on what you know to equip yourself and be able to guide that professional towards the needs of your child. And you've done justice to that question. The issue of having specialized spoons, bowls, being patient, knowing the right kind of food, explaining how the tongue works and how every part of the muscles work in helping the child to chew and swallow and get the nutrient that the child needs. You've done quite, I mean, beyond quite. You've done so well with that. Thank you so much, ma'am. Miss Ichoma, would you want to help us? Because the truth is that I remember during my training, I'd work with children with CP, but we had professionals who take care of the feeding. That wasn't the call of the special needs educator. So that we were made to understand some of those things. But I see, and just where I said earlier on before we came on the show, that with COVID now, especially I mean with COVID during when the heat, the high point of COVID when the lockdown was nobody was able to move. I was just wondering for those individuals who do tube feeding, why? Because I've seen cases really. Somebody sees a child, so I feed my own child with tube, and then someone gets a tube, not knowing the right kind of tube and how the hygiene, how to, I mean, the hygiene process of keeping that. Because I know from study that's meant to be for a temporary period of time, depending on the professional what do you call it now? The professional advice or the professional recommendation, But could you explain to us so that people that are thinking, oh, if my child is not eating, I can either force feed or tube feed. Could you please explain to us the use of tube feeding and how we can the way we can keep it hygienic for the child and the length of time it can be used for and why in particular should we with tube feeding an option for feeding children with cerebral palsy? You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier about bad cases of muscle tone, low muscle tone, and I talked about mitochondrial dysfunction. Some go as bad as being mitochondrial diseases. So, and then when it comes to muscles in cerebral palsy, as Ms. Kofo has pointed out, it affects different parts of the body. When it's affecting the lower part, definitely internally, the digestive tracts are not functioning well. Peristalsis are function of muscular contraction and expansion. So when expansion and contraction cannot happen, food cannot move. Peristaltic movement cannot happen. And even when food gets to the digestive tract, there has to be churning. We call it churning, whereby the food mixes with enzymes and then everything, works together to extract the nutrients, and then each of them gets absorbed in the way it's supposed to go. So when a child cannot do this, one has to resort to tube feeding. And in tube feeding, the food is formulated differently, and they are mostly formulated in liquid forms. So nutrients are prepared in liquid forms or in pureed forms. And then it now requires a real medical practitioner to find how to bypass the digestive tract where these peristaltic movements are basically required to bring about the absorption and continuous breakdown and absorption. So it requires that medical professional to trace the exact point of entry and how to implement. So the nutritionist, your own duties just stops at formulating the right diet for that child. But here, the medical practitioner has to do the job of, tracing the route and then introducing, finding the point of introduction, whereby most of them uses their navel, and then you feed like a child who is in your mother's womb. So it's a very complicated process and highly professional that apart from asking parents to learn about taking care of their children, you still have to work directly with a medical professional to implement these things. And when it comes to using tube and length of time, we all know that microorganisms thrive very well in any environment that has food. There was this experiment that was done, and it was found out that the toilet does not contain the most microorganisms in the house. It is the kitchen. Kitchen has the highest amount of microbial overload. So microorganisms thrive well where there is food. That's why the food that is of highest nutritional composition, they spoil faster, because the microorganisms, just like you like eating them, they also like eating them. So if you are using a tube to feed a child, there is a definite amount of time that it is known that that tube is no longer safe to be used, because there will be overgrowth. And then there is also a loss of elasticity when the tube starts, because there has to be sterilization process even when you are using a hair. So the tube at some point will start lacking the elasticity, and there is also possibility of the particles coming off. So the expiration of tube and feeding tube, it should be like it's logical that you can't use one for so long, and then when it comes to decision about using the tube and when and how, it's usually a combined effort, not just the nutrition. There has to be the nutritionist, and then there has to be the medical professional. So the nutritionist, your duty ends at what does this child require, and how do we formulate the food in order to give him the best of nutrients. And then the medical professional takes it up from there and finds the best way to implement it. And most times the parents are usually taught on how to go about it, because it's not every day that you will have a doctor coming to do it. So most
True,
times
true.
parents are taught on how to introduce, how to change, how to prepare. Yeah, it can be a tough one. It can be a very tough one.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. True that. Wow, thank you so much. We'll go on a minute break right now. But before we go on the break, I want to ask the audience, please put down your question, because after the break, we'll have your questions answered, one or two more questions, and then we'll call it a day for today, because there's so much we've learned that we need to go back, digest, and see how we can create more awareness, advocate for children with cerebral palsy in our classrooms, in our environment, because we realize that they have issue with low weight size. I mean, the weight loss, they have issue with weight loss because of obvious reasons that we've heard today. We're thinking, what can we do and how can we ensure that they get the best? Because we know that we are what we eat, and nutrition for me is key. And I believe that it is the case for everyone. So after this break, audience, please put down your questions for our professionals. We'll answer once we get back. Thank you. Please stay put, take water, stretch yourself, and then we'll come back
Yeah.
and round up this next session. Thank you so much.
Dyslexa, he give anything to make it go away, even though he knows it's here to stay. Buckets, he won't give up, no, cause you know he's way too tough. He's gonna do whatever it takes. He's gonna find a way. Casey never liked school much. All the kids would laugh when he read in class. Teachers tried to help him out, but they didn't know what to do, so they just let it pass. Sometimes he wanted to scream out loud, hide his head in the sound of the clouds. Dyslexa, he give anything to make it go away, even though he knows it's here to stay. Buckets, he won't give up, no, cause you know he's way too tough. He's gonna do whatever it takes. He's gonna find a way.
Wow. Where are my guests? Hello, Mr. Alex. We need to welcome back, everyone. We have two questions for our guests, and then if any other question comes up, then would I can't seem to find my guest. Wow. Okay, so while we wait for them to be back, we'll just see if there are any other questions that I missed or any comments. I want to thank everyone that has joined us today. Pamela Mano, Vicky Wilson, thank you. I'm trying to see the comments or questions for our guests. I wonder where they are right now. I'm guessing they are having that short break of water break or something, really. Yes, we've learned so much from both our guests, the physiotherapist, that Ms. Kufo, and Ms. Ijoma, the nutritionist, on the importance of food, importance of eating right, importance of individualizing the food for individuals with cerebral palsy. We have Ms. Ijoma back. Hello, Ms. Ijoma, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
So, good to have you back. We have two questions. The first question is, what is the effect of force feeding for children with cerebral palsy? And those, there are actually two questions when it comes to that, because parents are asking, okay, we know that they need to eat, and if their muscle tones cannot help them swallow the food, why don't we force feed? Well, if you say we should not force feed, what are the side effects? What is the danger in force feeding, and what are the alternative ways to get the food? I know you answered the alternative ways, but then could you explain what goes on during force feeding?
Yeah, force feeding, I'm going to use what I learned from Miss Kofo to answer this, because she explained about movement of muscles, coordination of movement during feeding. There is mastication, there is all sorts of, coordination that goes on when you put food, the tongue has to receive. After eating, the esophagus has to, there is a flap there. This I know, there is a flap which has to
Supposed
open
to
to
feed.
cover the
Yeah.
windpipe for the esophagus to be open. So if a child is having cerebral palsy, all of these things are functions of, I am in a meeting. All of these things are functions of, I'm sorry,
It's okay, it
are
happens.
functions of muscle. Yeah. So if a child does not have that muscular strength to coordinate all of these things, and you force feed, if he doesn't even have that ability of flapping to close the other one, the food can actually enter the windpipe and it will choke the child. It was just last year we heard about a woman who is being prosecuted in the UK, a Nigerian woman working as a nanny who force fed a child and the child died. So we know that these things used to work in those olden days, yeah, but we have to, we have to live with realities. A lot of conditions are becoming more common. And then when we see that many of these children, like Ms. Kofo explained, some of them may not be showing it fully. So you may not be having a child whose head is bending, or whose legs are not properly functional, but you may be having a child whom I pointed out might be having that mitochondrial dysfunction that may not be able to function very well in terms of fine motor skills. So when you have such a child and you are force feeding, the child's coordination from here to here may not be well, and then the food may take a wrong route and really hurt the child.
Force feeding is a no, no.
Mm.
Seek the help of
It's
a
a no.
professional for alternative means of feeding your child. Now, the last question I have is, we know that children with cerebral palsy deal with low weight loss. They don't look at their age because, of course, it has to do with the nutrient and the
Yeah.
diet that goes into their system. And I know as a parent, really, my own trick, I know it might not
Yeah.
be professionally right. Whenever my children are refusing to eat, I just switch to multivitamins. But the second day, they're hungry. I don't know how that works,
Yeah.
but I wanted you to just give information on that and what parents can do to augment or to supplement whatever it is the children are losing based on the challenge they're going through and are beginning to experience weight loss.
Yeah, when a child is not eating optimally, or when a child is losing weight, normally when we modify the diet, we usually add, like I said before, it's about, modifying the quantities of a certain nutrients based on the requirements of the child. With the modification also comes with, okay, again, to this mitochondrial dysfunction. If a child is having this condition, he's supposed to be fed at very regular intervals.
Hmm.
Some
So give
children
us an
with this
example.
condition,
Just give us example, like, okay, when you mean regular interval, could you just explain for that parent who's
regular
wanting
intervals
to?
is that you might need to be feeding the child every 3 hours.
Good.
A child with cerebral palsy, we have identified how they may not be able to eat very well. So if I personally I am eating, okay, let's say 50 grams of food, and then a child with cerebral palsy ends up eating only 20 grams, you have to make up for that 50 grams before lunch. Let's say we ate it in the morning before lunch. So it requires that between breakfast and lunch, you have to put up a meal again to make up for that 50 grams for his age and probably his anthropometric size, his BMI requirement. So frequent feeding, and not only that, because okay, again, to the mitochondrial dysfunction, a child with this condition has to be constantly provided with energy, has to be constantly. Some of these children, it is even required that before they go to bed, they will still eat dinner, but you place a snack on their table when they go to bed. They wake up in the night and they eat that snack before they sleep back. So they require to eat between dinner time and breakfast time.
Wow.
So this is still the more reason why parents should work with professionals. Don't just sit at home and manage this child, because when we talk about energy, it is not just about physical energy. The brain uses energy too. So when we keep talking about energy, don't just think that is standing up and walking about. It also affects the brain. So on so many occasions, we see a child who is not, following up, and we see that okay, he or she is not feeling well as a result of cerebral palsy. It might not just be because it is that way, but it is because the brain is also not getting enough energy it requires to fire itself and do the proper function. Because I
True.
don't believe that every child with cerebral palsy has intellectual disability. No,
No, no,
not all of
no.
them.
Unless there's a
So,
comorbidity. The fact has been ruled
unless,
out. A child, cerebral palsy is an orthopedic impairment, which has to do with
yes,
muscle and all of that. If the child has a comorbidity whereby there's also
uh
intellectual disability, that's where you can say.
that's
But
when it
if there's no diagnosis of intellectual disability, cerebral palsy is a different disability from intellectual
yes,
disability.
yes. So what brought me to that is to buttress the point that aside physical, the mental also needs that energy. So when a child is not breaking down nutrients properly as a result of effects of cerebral palsy diagnosis, you should realize that it might also be affecting the brain. And in this situation, with proper intervention with nutrition, it will require to a large extent that the child should eat. Some children are even required to eat 6 meals a day, because if his requirement is 50 grams, as I explained before, and he ends up eating 20, so why won't he machete? Why won't he lose weight? By the time it's lunchtime, you are giving another 20 grams. Meanwhile, by that lunchtime, he's now getting 40 grams when he should actually be getting 100 grams.
Wow.
50 in the morning, 50 in the afternoon.
True.
So if you are just giving 40 and then the child is supposed to get 100, why won't he lose weight? Why would he grow as tall as his mates? He doesn't have the building blocks. He doesn't have the nutrients. So
Wow.
this is where when it comes to nutrition in special needs, it's way beyond balanced diet. It is way beyond just
Wow.
giving food. A lot of things are taken into consideration.
Absolutely. So true. So true. Wow. Thank you so much, Miss Ijoma. I saw, yay, Dr. Why am I calling you Dr. Kofu? I think your doctorate is coming soon. Good to have you back. We had a few questions, and Miss Ijoma had answered those questions, but we don't mind you chipping in one or two things. The first question I asked her, she's like, she would like you to. She mentioned you. We're talking about the issue of force feeding. That what really occurs, because parents are thinking my child is losing weight. I have to feed him somehow. After all, in the olden days, they force feed children, nothing happens. So from your knowledge of the muscle tone and the feeding helpers and all of the physiological thing that happens, what is that negative thing that parents are doing to their children unknowingly when they're force feeding these children just to enable them get food into their system?
Okay, thank you very much. When I heard we could go on break, I thought it was feeding break, so I went for too long. I'm so sorry.
I thought as much.
Apologies.
That's
Yes.
okay. Miss Ijeoma really covered up as always.
Thank you so much, Miss Ijeoma. God bless. Yes,
Thank you.
in terms of force feeding, I think is a serious one of the biggest things that we all know that our parents do. In fact, I was taught how to do it myself until when you now go to another culture and then you get knowledge. I think knowledge is very powerful, and then realize all the mistakes you've been doing. In fact, to be honest with you, there was a child with a disability. I'm giving you a story so that people can resonate with it. There was a child
Yeah.
with a disability. So the parents were back in the UK. So you know how expensive childcare is. So they brought the mom, and the mom was really from the village, and the mom had raised 8 children. You know, Unfortunately, sometimes some of our children, even those ones without CP, they have something called sensory issues. In
Yes.
terms of
Yeah.
some people, those ones with sensory issues are those ones they don't like particular texture of food,
Texture of food.
particular taste of food, so it affects them so much. They are very aversive. Some of those children are the ones that if you take them to very dirty places, they will just be doing as if you'll be wondering that but you're not I saw and all that, but it's not them. It's just the way their body, it's just the way their
That
system
senses
has
them.
done. Yeah, so this child, mama came from the village, and then mama thought that it was, the same way that she had raised her other children. So now started the force feeding. Unfortunately, the child was screaming. The mama, force feeding, you more or less like you block the nose, kind of the airway. So yeah, I don't want to go into that grim story, but the problem is
Yeah.
that mama got in serious trouble. It was really bad because the child got to a stage, the food went to the wrong part, and then over there they don't joke with their children at all, irrespective of, you might be the producer of the child, but it is still their property
Yeah.
until when that child is 18. So it wasn't a funny episode. So mama that came to do omugo, she actually went to do omugo in another place for some months. So force feeding, number one, is not good. Feeding should be fun. It should be enjoyable. It should be nice. It should be something you like. Example is all of us here. If we see a food, you taste it. The first thing is the aroma that will draw you to the food. The smell. The smell is palatable. The color of the food. You make it very attractive. When we see, our eye says it does a lot. In fact, our eyes come into a lot of trouble because it is by sight that you now say, oh wow, that food looks nice.
It looks
That
good.
food smells nice. Before we eventually will now say, oh, let me taste it. That food tastes nice. If it is, you have to know your child. You have to assess your child. You have to know what does this child like, what does this child not like. But if the child does not like a certain thing and you are thinking that this child is just stubborn, this child has to eat, this child we have to get whatever way it's going to be, so we just start shoving the food inside the child's mouth. You don't know if your child has some to see a professional, or even you yourself. You've not like what Miss
Yeah.
Ijoma say, variety of food for this child to pick with. You've not made the food a fun thing. As some people, the work can be so
Yeah.
much. You bring somebody into your house that doesn't know so much about your child, and you expect them, the way they've learned somewhere is what they are going to come. You have to let them understand, see you what you are doing, and how you take care of your child before you start giving them that responsibility, because they are going to do it. You are not there. Once they are gone, they want to get it fast because there are other work they have to do.
Yes.
They want to quickly
True.
feed this child, go and do, wash the plate, do the dishes, wash the clothes, make sure everything is in order, and he's rushing everything into the child's mouth. You're not allowing the child to break it down, like what Miss Ijoma said, to break the food down, to have proper mastication, to do every other thing for the food to be digested. Everything is rushed. That's one part of force feeding. The other aspect of force feeding is that one we close the mouth and then we gag them, more or less like gagging. So when they want to breathe, they have to sniff in
Okay.
the liquid part of the food inside their mouth. Unfortunately, the epiglottis, there are all those muscles, every inner part, they are muscles. The airway is muscle. Later on, you give the child. After the child, you will now see the stomach big. Then the next thing, if you are not careful, the next thing, the child will bring everything completely out.
But
You now beat the child again and say, this stubborn child. No, the child is not stubborn. Unfortunately, it's us that we are not listening to the cues. Some of the children cannot talk, they cannot express themselves. If I'm the way that I'm telling you if you give me something that I don't like, I'll say, Miss Lola, I'm sorry, I like the food. I like the way you presented the food, but I don't eat this kind of food. You will take it from away from me. If you bring a food that I'm allergic to, I'll say, Miss Lola, don't even bring that food near me. Because if you
yeah,
bring it, my mouth, my lips will swell. I can say, I can express myself. These children cannot express themselves. Because my mommy likes something, it doesn't mean that me too I will like it. Because my mommy's body can take any food, it doesn't mean my body too can take any food. Because my senior brothers and sisters, they ate very well, they weren't picky eater. It doesn't mean that me too, I might get up older and then I will like it based on what my parents did, or I might just not like it at all for the rest of my life, still based on what my parents did to me. Some people, when they were growing up, they gave them this traditional medicine. If you ask them this day, they'll say they will never ever give their children all those medicine, because they know how it was more or less like it was punishment for taking those. Even some of our friends, when you ask them, do you like this thing, say never. My grandmother used to do this. I didn't like it at all. It's memory, it's retained in the I don't encourage force feeding. It's not good for the following reason. Number one, you have to understand what your child likes. You are forcing them to take what they don't like. Number two, have you tried other varieties that the child will like? Have you presented the food in a nice way? The way you've presented the food to this child, if someone should bring your food like that, will you take it? Number three, have you made feeding enjoyable,
yeah,
fun? Or you are just feeding because you have to feed? There are two things. Don't feed because you have to feed. Number three, have you had a professional, a nutritionist, to look at what are the actual nutrition this child needs? If you are feeding all carbohydrates in large quantity, meanwhile the child needs protein, needs vitamins, and all you just do is just
stop.
load the child. Like a lot of parents like indomie, because indomie is the fastest food to make and easy, and straight away we shove it in their mouth. But what nutrient has indomie got? What is the benefit? And then later you want them to Miss Ijoma said, a child that is meant to take 100, you give the child 20, and then you now bring them for physiotherapy. You want them to perform their utmost, they can't perform. Already our children, they are spending, if everybody is using 50% of their energy, children with CP, they are using 120%. Because
Yeah,
the example I gave was feeding. You will just carry our spoon, put in our mouth and eat, and you can be talking and doing. They can't. They need a lot of energy, a lot of coordination, a lot of high hand coordination, attention. They need the energy for all of that. This The way I'm talking now, I'm using energy to do the talking. The way you two are listening and concentrating, it is a lot of energy to sit down and not just sleep off. Because if you are tired, the next thing I'll just see the head hitting the microphone or hitting something, because you are tired.
yeah,
There's no energy. So if the children don't get the adequate food, they don't find food enjoyable. They don't find mealtime enjoyable. They would not function well. They will not function physically. They will not function mentally, cognitively. They will not function. And there are specific food that are for cognitive function, for physical function. Those foods that will help the child to grow better, to have more muscle bulk, and to have stamina. Those foods are very, very important. Like some food that I know that adults take. Example is coca oat. If you take coca oat in the morning, you have more energy. It's slow release for a longer time than if you take pap. After pap, before you know it, you go to the toilet twice. The whole thing is gone. By 11, you're already looking for food. So those are very important for the child, that you ensure that the kind of food that is going into their system is, number one, what they like, what will give them the right amount of energy and right amount of nutrients that they need, and make food eating enjoyable, make it fun.
Wow.
I think even
Thank
their
you
lunch
so much.
boxes, we
Thank
can
you.
cut, use style to cut different colors. We are richly blessed in this country. We have carrots, which
Yeah.
is like red, different colors, make it really nice and attractive for them. I know we don't have
Yeah.
time, but God will help us. We can create time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, Miss Kofo. Miss Ijoma, how can I thank you? We are so blessed
Thank
on
you so
this show.
much.
Every time we come up, we bear it out as it is, and everyone goes back, thinking of ways to make the world a better place for our kids living with disabilities. Thank you. I cannot thank you enough, really. And I'm so glad you chose to spend your evening with us. And to everyone who has joined in, thank you. Please, let's go out there, share this information to individuals with CP, with teachers, with parents. That's a wealth of knowledge you've acquired today that we can. People keep saying, I can't do anything, I don't know anything. But this, whatever it is you can, add your own little quota, and you see how far it will go in making the world a better place for individuals to live. Missy Gemma, thank you. Thank you so much. Ms.
Thank you,
Kofo, I
Lola.
can't thank you enough. Mr. Alex, thank you for helping us to make this program inclusive with the sign language presentation you're having. I remain Lola Aneke, and this is where we call it a day for today. Until we come your way again next week, have a blessed, blessed evening. Bye bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Dyslexa, he give anything to make
Bye.
it go
Thank you
away,
so
even though he knows it's here to stay. But KC won't give up, no, no, cause he's way too tough. He's gonna do whatever it takes. He's gonna find a way. Casey never liked school much. All the kids would laugh when he read in class. Teachers tried to help him out, but they didn't know what to do, so they just let it pass. Sometimes he wanted to scream out loud, hide his head in the sound of the clouds. Dyslexa, he give anything to make it go away, even though he knows it's here to stay. But KC won't give up, no, no, cause he's way too tough. He's gonna do whatever it takes. He's gonna find a way.